Hello! Thank you for stopping by. Movies are terrible. I'm Jeremy, and on this review, we're going to be talking about Tales of Halloween. So this is a 2015 anthology. It's directed by several kind of known names in the horror genre. It's kind of a horror comedy, and anthologies are kind of a tricky thing to review, right? Thinking back to like all of the anthologies I've seen, I remember them fondly, but it's because I block out the bad segments on it. Like, you think about Creepshow, Tales from the Dark Side, Twilight Zone, and just there's a lot of them. VHS, more recently, ABCs of Death. And they're kind of like a mixed bag. Some of the episodes, some of the short films within them are good, others are bad. And that's kind of the case with Tales of Halloween. But I am happy to report it's actually more good than bad, which is always refreshing. And Tales of Halloween is actually able to capture the spirit of Halloween and kind of feels like what I remember loving about Halloween without being another one of those 1980s kind of nostalgia fest where it actually is a period piece and every little detail in the movie is very of the era. Because Tales of Halloween actually takes place in modern day. The kind of wraparound segment is directed by Neil Marshall, who is a very distinct voice in the horror genre. Plus, he directed some episodes of Game of Thrones, which I'm a casual fan of, I guess you could say. The wraparound segment is voiced by Adrienne Barbeau, and she's playing a radio host. We only hear her in voiceover, and it's like she's doing a Halloween radio show and telling us as the viewer each of these different stories. And, radios are kind of a bygone era. So this is a cool way to harken back to another time while still keeping it true to today. Because there are still radio shows. They're just much less common. So all of this movie, each of these stories takes place in the same town. Kind of similar to the movie Trick or Treat, which is another anthology that I'm actually a very big fan of. Tales of Halloween is a tiny budget little movie, and despite that, it features tons of very iconic and recognizable faces. I hate to name one of them or 10 of them because I can't name all of them, but if you are a fan of the genre, then part of the fun of watching Tales of Halloween is going through and watching it and be like, oh shit, it's this person. Oh wow, I recognize them. One of the things that works to Tales of Halloween's benefit is the fact that it's more of a horror comedy than it is a horror. So it's never taking itself super seriously. And that works because each segment's almost like a setup and a punchline. And while they do obviously vary in quality, the good ones are very good. So I think that Tales of Halloween is a worthwhile journey for people who are diehard fans of this genre. On a scale of 1 to 5, I am giving Tales of Halloween, 3 stars. So there's a couple standouts that I wanted to touch on, just so as you're watching it, you can know which ones really resonated with me. One of them is Friday the 31st, and it opens up like a slasher film. There's a masked killer chasing down a girl. He ends up following her into the woods when a UFO shows up out of nowhere. And what comes out of the UFO is this little stop motion alien, which again, hearkening back to a different time while still being a current movie. And this little alien's like, trick or treat. And then the slasher killer doesn't know how to deal with it. The alien ends up possessing the girl that the slasher killer was chasing. And it ends up being a battle between almost like a possessed female character and this hillbilly, inbred, very Jason-esque character. And I had a lot of fun with that one. That's one of the better segments. The Night Billy Raised Hell is one about a young kid who's out on Halloween, and his older sibling and her boyfriend, I think, are trying to pressure him into doing some tricks and pranking some houses. He ends up doing it at the wrong house and ends up in a kind of adventure with Satan for the night. Very kind of interesting spin at the end, because as you're watching it, you're just like, what the hell? And then when the reveal happens at the end, you're like, that was actually pretty clever. And then my other favorite segment is called The Ransom of Rusty Rex. And that's where Sam Witwer and his crime partner go and kidnap a wealthy man's son. And what follows and what ensues is absolute hilarity. So as you're checking them out, keep in mind for those couple of segments. Until the next movie review, I'm Jeremy. Be terrible.